what you believe, whether you believe in God or not, there is no neutrality. So either you're pushing for something or you're pushing for something else. You know what I'm saying? So you're either putting us in a positive direction or you're putting us in a negative direction. You know what I'm saying? Is your music, for example, what Black women always bring up, does your music make, and obviously, yes, we're all grown men and women. We know children and teenagers watch too, but even for us grown folks, we all have decisions to make. And me listening to a Tupac record is not an excuse for me to go out and you know what I'm saying? And knock somebody over the head. But at the same time, these are levels of influences. And a lot of us been listening to this music since we were children, right? But with that being said, is that music, is it something that's pushing me forward to do greater things in life, or is it pushing me to do less? And so I always use this example, Boys in the Hood, right? If you want to talk about a movie that is full of violence, full of profanity, full of a lot of things that you could say are wrong in the world, right? And with all that being said, there's nothing in the movie that glorifies violence. It's not a movie. It's a very positive movie, but it's a very negative. It shows a very negative light on things that are negative. You know what I'm saying? You don't leave the movie like, man, I want to get shot like old boy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but
man,
I know a lot of people in the church, man, have seen that movie, and they say they never seen that movie. See that this is the thing. This is the thing, right? How can we? Because I think that we're not effective. Now we're not effective in the church.
Right.
Obviously, you know, there's a tide that's rolling right now across the land, right? And it's a big divide. And I was waking up, I was up today, and something just kind of hit me.
Right.
And I was saying to myself, man, you know, here we are as a Black people. We've been through a lot of things as a people. Right. But I also know that we have a lot of white supporters that support the Black movement.
Right.
That if because I started looking at the percentages, because every white person, man, don't hate us. Right. There's a I would say the power, the people that have the influence of the country, right? But there's a large group of people that if something went down, I know there's a lot of white people, man, that'll support, because there was in every movement with Martin Luther, with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, there was white people that died with him on the front line. So in a sense,
slavery too.
We not by ourselves. Even the slave masters, a lot of the slave masters didn't treat their slaves like the white supremacists did. Right? They didn't even whoop their slaves. Maybe when somebody came around, because they didn't want nobody to know. But my question that I want to, and I'm kind of prefacing to say what I'm about to say.
Right.
How can we become unified, right, and acknowledge the truth, right, instead of running from the truth,
right?
And how can we, as believers, because arguably somebody will say, well, you know, because now you don't talk about Jesus in every record, that you no longer love Jesus, right? And I like the fact that you said a few minutes ago was that, you know, you're not understanding. You believe that Jesus is real, but you may not agree. There are times in our life, man, when we have to do stuff where we really just don't want to do it.
Right.
But we have to do it. God mandated. You know, He closed every other door, and we got to walk through this door, and we may not even understand why we got to walk through it. And I think that is a very transparent statement. I can't just let that slide and not say, because there's a lot of people in the body of Christ, man, that don't really understand what you just said. It's like, I believe, but I don't agree. And if they sit here and say they agree with everything, they'll be telling a lie. Because sometimes, man, it means you gotta love somebody. When you telling somebody, man, they'll slap you in your face, you turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
You be like, man,
try Jesus, don't try me.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? My point that I'm making though is that's humanity.
Right.
That's a person wrapped in humanity. And I think what we've gotten from in the church, we've gotten from the truth of our humanity. We pretend like we're superheroes. And I know personally, I've been trying to be better. I've been trying to treat people better. You know, just because somebody's different than me, you know, now I'm gonna control my space. Because I'm Rico. Let's Rico all day long, right? but I have to understand and accept people that everybody's not like me. Everybody don't think like me. How can we build the body up, and how can we build a world up, without having to be cliquish and alienating people? Is that even possible, or is that a forever divide?
Yeah. Another really good question. I think it goes back to what you said, truth. And that's the thing that, even Mike, the late great, the greatest ever, Michael Jackson, when he said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror, right? So there has to be a certain level of personal reflection and personal self accountability first, right? Self-governing, of telling the truth to yourself and then allowing that to spew outward. So I think a lot of times, even when you look at the black and white divide, right? A lot of times white folks get offended because when you talk about racism, they think that you're saying that, well, this white person is a terrible person. And what they're not realizing is like, yo, you benefit from a system. Nobody's saying you did it, but truth calls us to reflect, to
You
be
in
honest.
general.
Right. Right. I'll give a great example in my opinion, right? So let's say, because I got family, my family is from the Bahamas, right? So let's say, because I got people that own property in Nassau, tons of family that I've never even met before, right? So let's just say they had a history, hundreds of years. They've tortured people, they've ruined lives, they've raped men and women, abused children. They did whatever evil you could think under the sun, right? I'm not gonna come out and be like, man, y'all tripping, man. Like, I ain't do that. Why y'all mad? I'm gonna be like, man, hey, listen, hey, don't hold me accountable, man. Them jokers crazy. You know what I'm saying? like, hey, man, I got this inheritance, man. I inherited this money and I want to do good in the world, man. I apologize. I would be so apologetic. Yes, I didn't do it, but I still feel a sense of responsibility because this is my lineage. This is where I came from. I'm a benefactor of this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Of this inhumanity that has happened, inhumane things that have happened to humans, right? So there's a certain level of accountability, even in the business world. When you take over a business, you take over the debt too. If you inherit a business, they don't say, well, hey man, you wasn't here for the 50 years that we was irresponsible, man. So we ain't gonna hold you accountable to this debt. Like, no, homie, this debt is yours too. You know what I'm saying? The name, the logo, the buildings, all that stuff, the debt is yours too. And so there has to be a certain level of accountability to where it's like, we're not saying that all white people or et cetera. What we're saying is, like, I think Rico, you said it earlier, it's the powers that be, and it's a small percentage, but they have all the power, they have all the wealth. And so because of that, there has to be a certain level of honesty. Not only that, but even when it comes to blacks, I think that Martin Luther King and a lot of people, they love to quote, evangelicals love to quote, I have a dream and all that stuff is great, right? But they don't want to quote the Martin Luther King that said, when he talked about integration and he said, I feel like I'm leading my people into a burning building. When he started to realize, wait a minute, black people need to go ahead.
Now, you got to stop right there.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I want you to stop right there, because when we look at segregation, right, and when we look at what's happening right now with the pandemic,